Hey, it's Sam, and I'm making this quick video about the upcoming full moon in the early morning hours of Tuesday, October 27th. The sun and moon will be completely opposite each other. The moon will be in Aries and in the nakshatra of Ashwini, which has to do with two horses. It's the first nakshatra in Aries, and it's the nakshatra where the zodiac begins, and it's like a new cycle. Now realize this is a full moon, not a new moon. So it's the halfway point in a cycle. So the sun will be opposite in Libra. So right now the sun is debilitated. The sun has been debilitated in Libra for a little more than a week. It's going to be there, for about 20 more days after this. And when the sun is in Libra, it winds up being debilitated there because the sun is where we're supposed to trust our own inner light and act upon that. And Aries is the sign where we act instinctively, where we don't think about things or consider them, we just act. We just trust our gut and act. And this is supposed to be the way we handle the solar energy, that sun energy within. We're supposed to just trust our instinct and act on our soul's purpose, on our soul's vision, and have the courage to just take a chance and act. This is why the sun is exalted in Aries. It's debilitated in Libra, which is where it is now, because Libra is a sign where we want to consult others, make sure everybody's happy, make sure everyone is taken care of. So it's kind of like the sun, which is your inner vitality and your shining purpose, is sort of checking with everybody and saying, is it okay if I shine brightly? Is it okay if I'm powerful? So when the sun is in Libra, there's that tendency. So you have to be aware of that tendency right now. You have to be aware of that tendency to compromise your soul's vision and your soul's purpose and your soul's clarity and consistent radiance and inspiration, and sell it short so that in order to please others. However, this is a time when we're very focused on pleasing others because the sun is in Libra, and this full moon in Aries is where we harmonize that energy, where we say, but wait a minute, in order for me to really get along with others, I have to first know my own boundaries, know my own convictions, and have a sense of my own integrity. Again, we have this kind of reversal because when the sun is in Aries, we tend to really feel that strongly. When the sun is in Libra, we tend to not. So now there might be some frustration about sacrificing your soul's purpose, your soul's mission to try to please others, and then this full moon in Aries is a kind of snapback, perhaps against that, where you assert yourself and say, wait a minute, I need to assert my individuality also. But again, this is the moon asserting our individuality, and the moon is the part of us also that wants to be connected. So it could be kind of tricky, for sure. As we lead up to this full moon, you may feel some of these themes sort of coming to a head, maybe in some of your personal interactions, some of your personal relationships, and social ones. In general, this is a good time for social interaction with the sun in Libra, and particularly if there are things that have to do with more than just your own personal happiness. Libra really facilitates, particularly, business type of relationships as well. And particularly the sun in Libra can also make for a good business acumen, because it's where we're willing to, again, take that personal vision and that personal strength and power and connect it with other individuals. So it's actually good for teachers and good for people who are communicating with the public. But on a personal level, like in your personal interactions, it could be a bit tricky. And this full moon in Aries is really about connecting emotionally and psychologically with that sense of courage and strength that it takes to establish good boundaries. But again, you have to realize the moon is the part of us that wants to connect. So the moon trying to connect through Aries, it's kind of like the feeling that, okay, since I've been compromising so much, now listen to me. Now listen to what I'm saying. It can have that sort of force to it, which is, again, a little out of alignment. So but also, the full moon in Aries is quite passionate, it's quite enthusiastic, so there can be a lot of enthusiasm for your projects right now. And again, once we get out of our personal desires and having everything relate to that, the difficulty with these situations tend to lighten up a little bit. So if you're not so focused on your own outcomes and you have a little more consciousness around it, the full moon in Aries is really good for a sense of courage and a sense of dynamism and enthusiasm for what you're doing in the world. In addition, one of the things to realize, Jupiter is aspecting Aries, so this full moon will get the aspect of Jupiter, because Jupiter is in Leo, and that, gives hope, gives enthusiasm, gives passion, gives, optimism for any affairs, especially ones that are, inspiring to you. Jupiter is guru and really supports those teachings. So any of the things in your life that are of a higher, inspiration factor, like your teachers, your sense of purpose, will be, can be really, full of benefit now. In addition, there's this pileup of planets still in Leo, including Mars. Mars is also very close to Jupiter, and Mars is the ruler of Aries, being joined Jupiter. This placement in Leo is now fueling us with a lot of conviction and fueling our inspirations and hopes with a lot of that personal conviction and integrity. There's a lot of enthusiasm to really pursue those things that we believe in now, that we want to develop. A lot of enthusiasm for that. And of course, because Mars rules the moon in Aries, because Mars rules Aries, this full moon in Aries is going to be driven by that enthusiasm and passion, not only of the Jupiter aspect, but the fact that the ruler Mars is in Leo, very close to Jupiter. In addition, Venus is also there, and Venus is not really getting the best of it on any level. So your relationships in general right now, and actually for next month as well, as Venus and Mars go into Virgo and pass Rahu and Venus is debilitated, relationships are going to be kind of tough for a couple months, and it's kind of happening now too. It doesn't mean that there has to be a lot of battling and fighting. The thing to understand is that at different times, we don't have as much drive and enthusiasm to make that thing work. Like for instance over the summer when Venus was retrograde back in Cancer and Mars was less active, there was a lot more desire for that sort of sweet, succulent side of life with relationship. Now, then Venus goes into Leo and it's with Mars and Jupiter, and that part of the Venus equation is less available because we're actually more in that other thing. We're more in that Mars, Jupiter, Leo, and Venus energy is actually being best applied in those situations that are, higher than just our personal enjoyment. So, like I say, it's really a good time for things where your career benefit, where your vision and purpose and higher social standing and the thing that you really want to share with the world can, benefit. So those things can really, be moving forward now. But, as long as you understand what the cycle means, it doesn't have to bring a lot of, difficulty and suffering. Things change, and then in a couple months, relationships will start to turn around. But Venus is at the part of the zodiac where the relationships don't flow as smoothly. So it's going to be that way for a few months, at least in the future. And the last thing to say about this full moon is it's in Ashwini, like I said at the beginning, and that nakshatra, it's ruled by two horses, the Ashwin Kumars, and there's a story where, the story of this section of the zodiac is where the wife of the sun had to take a break from the sun because the sun was so bright that his rays overpowered her. So she went to her father, the celestial architect, and asked for him to trim back the sun's rays a little bit, and so he did that, but he was still too bright. So what happened is his wife kind of tricked the sun a little bit and went off and instead put her twin sister Chaya in her place. Now Chaya literally means shadow, and the shadow was able to handle the sun a lot better because it's actually a shadow. It's much more cool. It's not as it's not as affected by the sun's light as his wife, who was called Sajna, which means consciousness. So after a while, after several years and even some children, the wife came back. She started to miss Surya and came back and realized that Surya, the sun, had fallen in love with his sister. Fallen in love with her sister, and actually didn't even know the difference. Didn't even recognize that that Chaya, the counterfeit wife, was installed instead of his actual wife, which of course didn't make Sajna, his real wife, very happy. So what she did is she turned herself into a horse and ran away and came down to earth. And so what the sun did is turned himself into a horse as well and came down to find her, and they made love, and the progeny is the Ashwins, the Ashwin Kumars, the twin horses. So what they did is then when the sun, Surya and his wife went back up into the stars, they left the Ashwin Kumars back on earth, and they were to be the great healers of men. They're actually called the physicians of the gods as well. And it's said that Ayurveda comes from the Ashwins. In fact, they were supposed to be the first ones to do Ayurveda. And so this nakshatra of Ashwini is very much related to the energy and the prana. Horses are symbols of prana, which is the life force, and how to best harness that prana and life force. And it's a very good metaphor. One of the things I say about Ashwins, it's two horses. And, if you try to have two horses pull your cart, they're going to kind of want to go in different directions. So you need to yoke them together. You need to join them. Otherwise, they'll pull in different directions. And this is very much about this section of Aries, where Ashwini is the beginning of Aries, and it's that first part of the zodiac where the energy and enthusiasm is very intense and fiery, but it can be random and all over the place and actually waste our energy. So rather than those two horses moving forward and pulling the cart very quickly and, making our life move forward very quickly, there can be a lot of confused energy in Ashwini. And we actually feel the results of that in botany. But that's one of the big lessons of this nakshatra and of this full moon is there's a lot of enthusiasm and passion and energy. Of course, it's in the mind because it's the moon. And that can be that can bring enormous force and power and prana into your life. Or it can really deplete your prana when it's scattered and unfocused. This is a light, swift nakshatra where we can be all over the place, like two horses running in different directions, kind of pulling us, on the fast track to nowhere. So you need to be aware of that and realize that beautiful symbol of the sun and his his wife, who was consciousness, coming together to create this remarkable healing, and then leaving these creatures back on the earth in the form of prana to heal us. And of course, it's two of them, which shows the duality of life, the masculine, the feminine, the yin-yang, how all this duality needs to come together. And when it does, we harness the power of prana and we move forward very quickly. So that's a sort of deeper energetic mysticism behind this full moon. Now, if you want to see how this affects your sign, you can, for only 1 penny, you can get this forecast for your sign and hear me talk about that for Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Capricorn, all of them, because this full moon is going to be different for each of the 12 zodiac signs. So if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. Otherwise, have a great week. All those planets in Leo, they're starting to culminate and come to an end around the very beginning of November. They're going to move, at least Venus and Mars are going to move into Virgo. I'll talk more about that then. And I'm also getting ready, I'm also finishing the 2016 forecasts, and they're going to be ready very soon as well. So anyway, have a great week. Leave me some comments and let some people know about this. And if you want to know about how this will affect your sign for the next 30 days, go ahead and you can do that for only 1 penny.